Hi, I'm Femi OK. You're watching the stream back in the studio again. Today, a story that stream viewers have been asking us to talk about for some time. The massive and sometimes violent protests against police brutality in Nigeria. The recent call to end SARS, that's Nigeria's Special Anti-Robbery Squad, has taken over social media and the streets. It's also put the spotlight on Nigeria's youth calling for change.
To understand the significance of this protest and the resilience of the young people involved in it is to be aware of the history of police oppression in Nigeria, especially the impunity backing this oppression. It's no longer a question of whether or not the government is willing to effect change, but about the resilience and the insistence of the youth to not back down until all of their demands are met.
Thank you, Ebenezer. I know watching at home, wherever you're watching, you've got questions and comments as well. If you're on YouTube, you can jump into the conversation via the comments section. If you're on Twitter, tweet us at AJ Stream. The stream invited the Inspector General of Nigeria's Police, Mohammed Adamu, to join today's discussion. But Nigerians in particular, I want you to hear why he declined. He feels that the Nigerian public has lost trust in the police force, and he would like to honour the requests of the protesters to earn back their trust before speaking to us on the stream. I don't know how long that will take, hopefully not too long. In the meantime, I'm delighted to welcome Indi Kato, a SARS protester and Executive Director of the Dinidari Foundation, Suleiman Abba, Chairman of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund and the former Inspector General of Police, and Al Jazeera correspondent Ahmed Idris. Guess it's really good to have you. Ahmed, guess, if you could describe this past 7 days in Nigeria, how would you explain what is happening right now? Ahmed, you go first.
For me, I think it's, first of all, a realization that the Nigerian youth can stand up to something. It's also chaotic. As organized as it is, it could also be very violent. Now, the first week of this protest was really something new, something out of the blues for the Nigerian youth. This is a country for long that's been divided along ethnic, religious, and other fault lines. However, when the call came for protest against police brutality in Nigeria, you see, people, especially the young ones, from the ages of 20 to 35, dominated the mass of these protesters. I've seen young people, young mothers with infants, babies, in fact, strapped to their backs, marching along the streets of Abuja, Lagos, in Port Harcourt, and all these places. You ask them, why are you doing this? Their answer is that for long we've been ignored. For long, our aspirations and, of course, demands have not been met. And to be candid, Femi, this is pent-up anger. This has been going on for a very long time. It's not the first time Nigerians have protested to call for an end of this police unit that has, of course, not really outlived its usefulness, but has become the law unto itself. I remember listening to the man who midwifed SARS, former police officer Fulani Kojafa, talking on radio, saying that he regretted midwifing this unit because the unit diverted from its core principles. He said he feels ashamed to be associated with it. Now, why has it taken so long for the Nigerian authorities? For 3 times, the Nigerian government has promised to reform this unit. And unfortunately, it did not. The last one being in 2018 when the current vice president promised to reform SARS. But eventually, what happened? After a few months, they returned back to their old ways. And this time around, Nigerians...
This is such great context. I really appreciate it. Indi, you are out protesting. You are curating some of the other protesters' messages on social. When I said, what is going on in Nigeria right now, what immediately came to mind for you?
Well, for the past week, it has been that young people have decided that, look, enough is enough. And even the older generation agree. We've endured enough brutality. This has just been too much. And it was time to have a conversation with our government. We have rights. We're citizens of this country. You're not going to infantilize us. We're going to organize. We're going to have this conversation with our government, and you're going to do the right thing. And the right thing is ensuring justice is served, ensuring that the police understand what accountability is for their own system, ensuring that compensation goes out to victims, and ensuring that there are adequate, proper police reforms. And that is what we've been trying to do. Into this week, what has been happening for young people, especially today, is the use of non-state actors to carry out mayhem against young people. And it's so sad and depressing for us because why? Young people in Nigeria decided to have a conversation with their government. What should have been done is that we should have been listened to. We organized at a level that Nigeria has not seen before. That should have commanded respect. That should have been and still should be the catalyst for a new Nigeria. That is what young people are trying to have. And imagine a generation so young, being so responsible, organizing themselves in such a great manner, putting out our messages and telling the government that you should listen to us. And then another generation that we expect, because at all points they have been saying they're like parents to us and all of that. And we expect that you should listen, you should attempt to carry out these reforms because it's our future we're talking about. And what has happened is unleashed violence. We've gotten violence from the police, we've gotten violence from state actors, we've gotten violence from non-state actors. And I would like to point that Nigeria has a history of this. The application of non-state actors, giving them the free run to use violence. And where do we see it going to? It always ends up in insurgency.
Indy,
it ends up in militants.
What question, Indy,
have not been learned.
Indy, what question would you want to ask the former IG, the former Inspector General of Police? He is here right now. He is listening to you. What question would you want to ask him right now, at this moment?
Mr. Suleiman, when you were IG of Police, were you aware that young Nigerians, because we cannot remove your own time as IG, were you aware that this was happening? And if you were not aware, why? Now, let me be very clear with what this is.
Indy.
Extrajudicial killing. Hi, Femi.
Indy, let him respond, because it was a very good and very powerful question.
Correct. A very good question and a very relevant question. Please let me answer your question. A very good question, a very relevant question. I left the office of the Inspector General of Police in 2015. And according to the records from anchors in radio and television stations, they say most of the unwarranted and most of the disturbing actions of SARS began in 2016. Now, I'm not saying that, even while I was Commissioner of Police in Rivers, I had seen, some of the unacceptable activities of SARS. But the most important thing is this. When did things go wrong? Really, really, really wrong? 2016. But even after office, when it started in 2016, we are highly concerned. The fact that I left the service does not mean that I have no interest in the service and I have no interest in whatever will pull the service down. SARS have bad boys. Any loss of life at all, one single life, is bad to those of us who are interested in having a good service, police service. And if for any reason we see it deviating from the purpose for which it was established, not only SARS itself, but the whole Nigeria police itself, the much responsibility or the much we can do as former Inspectors General of Police is to advise the current or the serving Inspector General of Police at the time.
All right. So
now it is left
Inspector General
for the
Police,
Inspector General of Police to take it, work with it or not. But I must say that things have been wrong with the SARS for a very long time, and we are concerned with it. And some of us have done a lot.
And it's true. I've spoken to a lady during the early days of this protest, and I think last Friday we spoke as well on Al Jazeera, This is a lady, for 12 years, the whole family was looking for her brother. And up to now, she was never granted access to that brother. In fact, they presume that the young man is dead, and he was last seen in the custody of SARS. She said to me that her petition, the family petition, did not even reach the authorities. She's written, but she believes that that petition has never reached the Inspector General of Police. So it's like the last time we spoke with her was on Friday, and she said to me, what will convince her is when the Inspector General of Police resigns. I said, why should he resign? He said, look, the Inspector General of Police doesn't even know the powers that the SARS unit has. They are beyond reproach. They have become law unto themselves. So it's a big, major debating point in Nigeria. Who controls these people? What resources are at their disposal? Why are they above the law? And that is why the government is coming in. Now, when you take this conversation to the Nigerian youth on the street, the anger you see in their faces is just frightening. And that is because for long, government has refused to do the right thing.
Ahmed, can I just add something, because YouTube is having this conversation as well, echoing what you're saying. David Jonathan, the problem isn't just SARS. The problem is the government constantly failing everyone. We are tired of their impunity, corruption, and obvious brutality in the public without regard, which is what you were saying there. It's like the anger is palpable. If I may, I think it's really important to have police voices in this conversation. I told you that the head of the police force in Nigeria said he's not doing any media right now, which is why there's so many retired officers on media in Nigeria, because he's asking the retired officers to do the job for him. Dr. Emmanuel Ojukwu.
Well, I'm not sure the IG ever asked me to come up here anyway.
Dr. Emmanuel Ojukwu told me this earlier, because I asked him what kind of police would be so brutal to their own citizens. And this is how he framed it. Let's have a listen.
The welfare of the police is actually poor, but that's not an excuse. What I'm going at as a psychologist is that over time, police officers have pent-up aggression in them. And because the police has no union whereby somebody can ventilate his grievances, they bottle them up and look for area of least resistance, which mostly are members of the public, and then they put the aggression on them.
And President Buhari of Nigeria called them a few bad eggs. Indy, a few bad eggs?
We cannot afford a few bad eggs in the Nigerian police force. I'm especially listening to the former commissioner, Mr. Emmanuel Ojukwu, talking about pent-up anger. Now, what we're looking at is, if you say pent-up anger, it means that thousands, hundreds of thousands of armed people in Nigeria have pent-up anger and are releasing this anger on the Nigerian populace. This should not be so. One of the questions I would have loved to ask Mr. Suleiman Abba is, what is so difficult in these reforms? And I would like the police to tell us themselves. Let's also remember that in 2013, Mr. Suleiman, 2013, Ezu River, Anambra State, the boundary between Anambra and Enugu State, was actually filled with corpses. Corpses allegedly from the Akuzu SARS in Anambra State. This is a place that is known, and this is why my question was.
So, Indy, I'm going to come back to my laptop here. Indy's just broken up a little bit. Anybody who's watching in Nigeria will empathise with that, because sometimes the connectivity is a little bit challenging. On my laptop, this is what the police put out last week. They were getting rid of this special anti-robbery squad. They promised that the officers from that unit, they would be retrained. They would have some psychological testing. There's all sorts of things promised. Look what the protesters did. They had their own 5 demands and said, this is what we want. Release the protesters. Justice for all the deceased victims of police brutality. And a question for you, Indy, from YouTube. And that question is, from Najib, is it time for protesters to institutionalise and get their demands codified into law? Because the protest is snowballing and violence is rising from all fronts. Indy, it's basically, what next? What are you going to do next?
So basically, let's look again at this issue of violence. And I'll say it again and again. It has been well documented by young people. These protests have been so well planned. Young people did not step out to have violence. The thing about it, with what you're telling us in terms of meeting with the government, is we've seen this before. Occupy Nigeria. Why young people keep saying that they do not want leadership is that instead of having a sincere conversation with young people and looking for proper reforms, what this leadership means is that the government will constantly try to look for people they can buy over, people they can pick up. And this is why, look, what we're looking at is that system of conversation has broken. Young people have articulated what it is that we want. The first time I answered a question on this show, I actually listed again justice, accountability, compensation, and police reforms. We've listed it time and time again. Now, these things that we have listed is the job of the police. It's not supposed to be rocket science. It's not something that does not exist. This is the job of the police. This should be the normal of the Nigerian police. Now imagine young people are telling the government that, look, institute what should be the normal of the Nigerian police. And the government is asking us, what do you want? How can you look at a system that bad and keep asking people, what do they want? People are saying, we don't want to die anymore. Your men are killing us. You should be able to ensure that reforms. And please, I will use this opportunity to state that one of the principal reforms we are asking for is decentralization of the Nigerian police. Because you can see the IG says he doesn't want to talk. One of the key things he should have realized by now is that his men do not listen to him. The center has lost control. And that center, we must decentralize to state police.
Indeed, let me bring back Suleiman. Suleiman, this is Jane on YouTube. She says that SARS was rebranded, not scrapped. So when SARS went away last week, there was now a special weapons and tactical team in their place. Jane says, we want that police division gone as they have done more harm than any good. The police should also be reformed. When we're looking at reform, what needs to happen? What's the first thing that needs to happen? You can hear the passion. You can hear how mad Nigerians are right now. What needs to happen first?
Well, the first thing that needs to happen is identify what is gone wrong. A lot of things have gone wrong with SARS, and SARS has been disbanded. That's the first step. The second step is come up with alternative, what the community, what members of the public would want to be the system of policing. This is what is called community policing. The people have spoken, and they have spoken very well. And the next thing is, what we have in place now is the Nigeria Police Trust Fund, a trust fund that has 3 objectives. First, train and retrain the police. Second, equip the police with modern equipment. 3, improve the welfare of the personnel in the Nigeria Police. Now, these 3 objectives, if you look at the reports of the various commissions or units that have been established before now to reform the police, we've had the MD Yusuf report, we've had the Pari Osayande report, we've had so many others.
Do you know, I'm not sure people are patient enough to wait for this. They're furious. Let me share this with us as another idea. This is another idea. Right. This one comes from Dr. Emmanuel Ojukwu, who you may remember is a former police commissioner that spent over 30 years in the police, and he retired a few years ago. And he's mentioned this, and it is such an important point that he made. I'm just going to let him make it himself. When I talked to him about reform, this is what he told me. What he mentioned was political interference. The Inspector General of Police is appointed by the president. Various high-level members of the police are appointed by politicians. And Ahmed, what he said was, get rid of all of this political interference so that police only answer to the law, because if the IG, the Inspector General of Police, doesn't do what the president wants to do, he is out of a job. So he really went there. Ahmed, you go.
Without doubt,
Ojukwu was the commissioner of
Femi,
police. Please,
Yes.
please,
Yeah.
let me
the situation
let me
is
land.
such that
Please,
this
Ahmed and
setup, the
Suleiman,
whole setup,
Ahmed and Suleiman, hold on one moment. We have him now in his own words, so I don't have to paraphrase him. Let's play that clip.
Right.
In the reform of Nigeria police, there should be what is called constabulary independence, whereby the head of Nigeria police does not answer to the president or the government in power, but he answers to the law. There is so much political interference in the running of the police, starting from the appointment of the IG, his deployment, and the posting of officers. Politicians have run down the police, and they should remove their hands from the running of the police.
Oh, he went there.
Well,
That's
this is
so
where,
honest.
This is where I want to come in.
Yes.
This is where I want to come in. There's nothing like being honest here. Now, look, the fact of the matter is that there is no law that says political interference or that establishes political interference. Any officer that allows himself or accepts political interference, he should be held responsible and accountable for it. In 2015, there was political interference to tamper with the elections. I stood my ground as Inspector General of Police. I rejected the political interference.
Okay, I
and what
hear.
happened to me? I lost my job. But that doesn't
Exactly.
mean-
You lost your job. You lost your job. That was the
That
point.
doesn't mean anything.
It does.
If we continue that
Femi,
way,
Of course
if we
it does.
continue that
Suleiman,
way,
I hear you. You
what
are
I'm saying is
I
that
hear your
there's no
principles.
law that establishes political interference.
I hear you. I hear the principles.
No,
We
no.
also
And
know the
I
reality.
want to believe.
And-
I also want
and
to
Femi,
believe. Please
that-
allow me
that-
to speak. I also want to believe. I want to believe that Mr. Ojukwu made this talk before the enactment of the 2020 Police Act.
Right.
Because the Police Act has addressed this issue clearly.
Okay.
and squarely.
No, I spoke
So I
to
think
Dr.
this is an
Ojukwu
old adage.
on Saturday, so he still thought it was relevant. Ahmed, very quickly, because we're right at the end of the show. Go ahead. Will this moment make any difference in terms of reform of the police in Nigeria? It's got so much bigger than that, but will this moment make any difference, Ahmed? Go ahead. Can you hear me? Will this moment make any difference?
Yeah, hi, Femi. Well, basically, it's not only political interference. The system of recruitment into the Nigerian police itself is fraught with a lot of problems. You never have proper background checks, and then you bring in people with questionable character into the force, give them guns, give them training, and like the Inspector General of Police said, they have the former Commissioner of Police said, they have pent-up anger, and then they unleash that violence on ordinary civilians who have nothing to do with the system. So basically, what these protesters are saying is that you can't reform the police without looking at the core issues.
All right, Ahmed.
And what they wanted actually, basically, is to reform the police.
Ahmed,
first of all, to kick out.
We're at the end of the show. We're at the end of the show.
Kick out SARS.
There's so much more.
Police.
Yeah. And one more thing you had just to end on?
Yeah, basically to kick out SARS, reform the police, and also target those areas that are critical in ensuring that the police is
where we are going to
the power
leave
to
our
deal with.
conversation for now. Thank you so much. The conversation continues at AJ Stream on Twitter, on social, and I'm going to leave you with some of the voices of the Nigerian diaspora because this End SARS movement has spread across the world. But for now, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.
We hear different revolution, and there's nothing the president is doing. But we feel that the revolution is now. And young people all over, both in diaspora, both at home, are going to take action and think that the real democratic system should be affected by young people.
Continue to protest and protest safely. Be sure not to vandalize your communities. And also protest legally. Continue to let your voices be heard.
It is not just enough to ban SARS and rename it to SWAT, but a total reformation of the security agencies.
And I want the international community to observe this situation and hold Nigerian government accountable if they refuse to act to protect their citizens.